Welcome! Holy shit! You guys, I have missed you. This is Confidently Insecure, the podcast where we are absolutely sure that we don't know everything. I am your host, Kelsey Darragh, and oh my God, it has almost been exactly a year since I have been in your ears. So let's address the elephant in the room. What the fuck happened to adult shit? I was in a very precarious position. Is that the right word? Precarious? I was in a very peculiar position when the 30 episodes that we did last year ended. My co-host left. I was in a contract at BuzzFeed where I had the decision to renew it or leave and go part-time. I did decide to leave and go part-time so that I could go do other stuff. Like I'm on a new e-show that you can watch on demand or on Hulu. I'm writing a book. Holy shit, spoiler alert. And we had the choice. If I left, I wasn't going to be able to take the intellectual property, as they call it in Hollywood, with me. And they ended up dissolving all of their podcast division anyway. So in a weird way, I think that this kind of was fate. So now you're probably wondering, what the fuck does Confidently Insecure mean? This podcast is all going to be about subjects that I know are important to our generation and our pop culture zeitgeist, but that I am not totally always comfortable with talking about. I want to have the hard conversations. I want to ask the awkward questions. I don't want to be afraid to mess up. I want this to be a safe space where anyone can come and learn. So each week you will have experts, friends, and hell, even maybe some enemies might stop by to teach us a thing or two, or to just give us a little behind the peak curtain at some of our favorite people. So I hope you guys will enjoy this pilot episode with one of the most interesting people that I know, Eugene Lee Yang. You know him as one of the Try Guys, but oh, is he so much more. This episode, we dive into tons of fun and juicy stuff, like he decides which Try Guys are tops and bottoms. We also dive into his sexuality and coming out for the internet and world to see. And I basically hit on him for like an hour because he's just so hot and I love him so dearly. We get into a little bit of social justice warrior and Twitter culture. It is a very fun episode and I'm so glad that he was my first guest. I did interview him a couple weeks ago, so you're going to hear him talk about stuff that is now out on the internet for you guys to consume. All of those links will be in the description below. And hey, if you want to get some of your very own Confidently Insecure merch, that link will be in the description below as well. If you're listening to this on one of your favorite podcast platforms, you can always rate this in the iTunes store or leave a review. That's super helpful. Or if you're watching this, which I should say, this isn't just a podcast. This is also a video. You can actually go to my youtubechannel.com/Kelsey Darragh and watch this whole thing. And don't forget, while you're there, give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, all of that promo-y bullshit. Now let's get to it. The very first episode of Confidently Insecure with Eugene Lee Yang. Guys, welcome back to Confidently Insecure. I am your host, Kelsey Darragh, and if you haven't already guessed by the title, one of my favorite people / alcoholics is in the room with me today. Everybody, ladies and gentlemen, and in between, we've got Eugene Lee Yang.
Hey, Kelsey. Hey, speaking of alcohol, I noticed that we don't have any alcohol here.
We don't. You're the only one I figured would.
Wait, do you normally drink on this?
Yes.
Oh.
None of the boys could.
Well, it's perfect because I brought some whiskey.
Oh my God, a boy after my own.
Actually, it's bourbon, my favorite.
I love Bullet. Oh, and we got Try Guys mugs. Where can they get these?
You can get these at www. You know what? I'm not going to fucking say that. I hate self-promoting. I know I'm supposed to, but I fucking hate it.
Podcasts? I feel like the boys might not trust you on podcasts.
You know, I've warmed up to it. Podcasts seem to be really more in the realm of like, I guess, Zach's interests. He listens to them quite frequently.
I do too.
Keith loves to talk, and Ned is just basically a dad. So of course they're into podcasts.
Why are you so podcast adverse?
Can I give you the real tea?
I want the real hot steaming piping tea.
It's because I have a shitty ass old car that doesn't have the correct connections to be able to listen to anything from my phone. So
That's
I've
the
never,
tea.
yeah. So I actually listen to a lot of NPR. So
Oh,
I
okay.
am built to listen to people talking. I just haven't gotten into the wave of podcast listeners. So I'm not in the, I don't know.
It makes you sound old, but you're not. You're
Yeah,
like the
I'm not
hippest of
old.
them all.
Yeah.
Maybe it's cool that you're not into podcasts. Oh, fuck. You're like that guy that doesn't have an iPhone.
Well, I'll get into your podcast.
Oh. I have to do the same thing with you that I did with the other guys. We start with a rapid fire round only because I want to get through all the shit that everyone wants me to ask you.
Do you do your own makeup?
Yeah.
Yeah, it always looks great.
Thank you. So I obviously tweeted out on Instagram that I was interviewing you guys. Everyone sent like the same 20 questions. So I just put those in rapid fire.
Oh, shit. These are from audience members?
All of you guys are answering the same ones.
Oh, this is clever. Wow.
So
look
this
at
is
you.
just like,
You're
let's get it out of the
very
way because
clever.
everyone's going to be like, why didn't you ask them this? And so
Okay.
let's just rapid fire these so we can get to the real good stuff.
All right, let's fucking do it.
Okay, ready? All right, here we go. What is it like leaving BuzzFeed?
Fantastic.
What does it cost to start your own company?
A shit ton.
Who works the most?
Depends. The diapers, because babies shit a lot.
Who works the least?
Also depends.
Favorite video not out yet?
Fuck me. No, that's not a video. Oh, that
It
would be a great video.
You guys would
though.
pay a lot for that Patreon.
Favorite video not out yet. You know, we are doing something with car detailing, which I'm excited about.
My mind just went to a very weird place.
Wait, what were you thinking? No, like Pimp My Ride style.
No, I just saw dicks, exhaust pipes. I don't know why. Thing you would never try.
Thing I would never try. That's
Like,
I guess
what wouldn't you do a video about?
Oh, you know, we're all gonna say the same answer, but anything that nice. Bourbon burp. A burp.
A burp.
You know, we always say that we don't want to do anything that disrespects this particular community for the sake of laughing at them. You know, we're not the Paul brothers, so.
Oh, I don't know. I feel cool whenever someone brings up like teen, tween.
You know, I don't know
YouTube
anything
lingo.
about most people,
I
but once I
know.
became more YouTuber-y post
Yeah.
BuzzFeed,
You have to. It's part of your
yeah,
job.
and you know, we have to have our finger on the pulse, which is both fortunate because you find out a lot of people are actually quite talented and very intelligent and really just hard workers, and some
And
people are.
not so much.
I don't know. It's just I don't respect that brand,
Yeah.
but you know, you didn't hear it from me. Actually,
So
you didn't. Fuck
you
it, whatever.
literally would try anything.
I'll try anything.
Heroin?
I wouldn't try heroin.
Okay.
But I would try to be a heroine.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
How very like of the times that is of you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Who is your role model?
Lucy Liu.
I love that. Who is your best friend in the Try Guys?
Ah, shit. You know what? I'm gonna say myself.
Okay, who is your best friend out of the Try Guys?
Because they're all gonna say Keith. They're all gonna say Keith.
What
Keith will
did
even
Ned
say
say?
himself.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say myself because I just want to play him to be
Okay.
a dick.
Who's your best friend outside of the group?
I would say, fuck. Do I have any other best friends anymore? You know what?
That's my answer. Is I don't have any
Jesus
friends.
Christ! I don't think all of my old friends have been replaced by working with the Try Guys. I don't think I have any more friends.
What about David?
Oh, I do love David. You know
Yeah,
David. David
I love
Dang is
David
the
Dang. He's our
stylist
friend.
extraordinaire.
Yes,
who
we love
I got
him.
everyone while working at BuzzFeed to get haircuts from him. So anyone you saw get a better hairstyle at BuzzFeed, it's
Was
because of
David.
my friend David.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go with David. Who brainstorms the weirdest ideas?
Probably Zach.
Really?
Yeah, well, you know what? Weird is a relative term.
Fair.
Zach brainstorms the dumbest ideas.
Okay.
Like, you know, remember his videos about, like, I'm going to do a song about how I hate honeydew.
Yeah, and
you
it
know,
was great, but weird.
But weird. Or,
Yeah.
like, let's do a video about people eating their boogers.
I was in that video. I don't want to talk about it. I was an intern. I felt like I had to.
Yeah, we sometimes, like, roll our eyes at him. because.
it.
But he's also has some of the best ideas. So
Yeah.
he kind of does more of the high, lowbrow taste.
Teeters the
he
line.
loves Fast and Furious. Give that example. So it's both the mixture of high and
Why
low
does
culture.
that speak so much to someone's personality?
Yeah,
if
it's
they
a good
like
because they can argue it to a point where you're like, okay, I can see how that could be funny.
true.
Yeah, he's
And you could
ironic.
argue both sides for.
He's an
Fast and
ironic
Furious.
guy.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair. Who has the best thumbnail faces?
Keith, for sure. Look at that face.
All of you guys gave different answers. Fave new YouTuber friend since becoming like super famous.
Oh shit. You know, we've actually been making a lot of new YouTuber friends. You know, I would say I really enjoy Lily Singh.
Aw.
She was someone that is just so huge in terms of being a legacy YouTuber. Like she was one of the OGs that, you know, usually when you first meet
it's
them
like
at like an event, they're like kind of untouchable.
Yeah.
Her and the Shane Dawsons and, you know, I guess you could even include the Pauls. Like they're like older, like huge YouTubers that just have way too many followers. But in person, she was like incredibly nice and very gracious. And
do you miss BuzzFeed?
Sometimes. Not in the way I don't miss BuzzFeed professionally, but I do sometimes miss it personally. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because there are, let's be real, every time I talk about BuzzFeed and leaving it, when I say, you know, wipe my brow, I'm glad I'm over that, it's because of a professional sense. I had a contract, I could do everything I want to do that I wanted to do since I was a kid, but everyone who worked at BuzzFeed, including you know, I might not have been friends with you
so much
in any other me and you we would have
found each other.
I would have found you at a bar, like at the back room,
in the bathroom on the floor,
snorting fake heroin,
something off the floor, what I think is heroin.
Yep. But I don't regret any of the personal experiences I had.
Fair. I like that,
including meeting the fucking Try Guys, who you know I would not have been friends with them in real life.
No.
Hell no. We would never have crossed paths.
So at least there's that.
Yeah.
It is funny that like you will, you know, as you guys continue to grow and grow and grow, that like that will be such a small part of your overarching career.
Yeah. It is funny. I guess if
it was only 4 years that you were there, which is
4.5 years. Yeah.
Not that long.
No.
In your grand scheme of like.
It was truly like going to another college.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the best way of putting it whenever anyone asks, like, how's it working there? I'm like, college.
Yep.
Imagine college, but you get paid. YouTuber you're not friends with, but really want to be.
I love that guy who does primitive technology. It's the Australian dude. He's just like shirtless in all his videos, and he builds things as if it was the Stone Age, with no sync sound in terms of dialogue. It's just him working. So it's vaguely ASMR-y, but he literally recreates things like a forge or a
what the hell? I've never even
or a
seen
hut,
this.
And they're massively viral.
Oh, this guy was in the YouTube Rewind.
He was
the end, and everyone was like, "What the fuck was that?"
Yeah, he's great. I fucking love him. Also, he's like always shirtless, which I always appreciate when
Not mad about that. Not mad about that.
And I love people who are silent. I like really respect silence.
Surprised you came to hang out with me
So I'd love
today.
to be friends with, like, if I had to collab, because I'm not like someone who's just immediately like, hey, fucking collab. Like, you know, I feel awkward. But if he asked me to do that, I would love to be in a video just in the background, like,
you hear that? Primitive technology.
popping up it from a bush with like a spear.
You would be great at that. All of those like outdoorsy, woodsy videos you guys did. That's not an act.
Yeah.
Like that's very much you.
Yeah, and I get really one with nature.
Like you would be the first person I drive to in an apocalypse situation.
I am the best person to get in a zombie apocalypse.
You have endless booze, 2 very cute dogs, and you're a psychopath.
And I also sit with my back facing most open spaces so I can mark exits whenever I walk into a new building.
Me too, but that's because I have massive anxiety.
I have a lot of anxiety too, but I also know what I can use
really?
as a weapon. For things that are spectacularly tragic that could happen that probably won't, like plane crashes or mass shootings.
Do you do good? Well, mass shootings, that's totally like legit. That's a legit based fear. But airplane crashes, I'm the same way. But you travel so much.
I know, but I have severe anxiety on planes.
Do you take Xanax or anything?
No, I don't take anything.
Ever?
No, I kind of get a high from the anxiety. You know, I feel like it keeps me on my toes. Because if I actually relax, then I won't be prepared when we go down. Most deaths happen when people don't get off a plane fast enough because they don't know what to do. They sit like sheep. So what I would do is scream, point at people, let my anxiety run high, kick the slow people in the face and be like, children who are fast and people who are fit, you get off now first, because it saves more people statistically. Unless you have older people in front who don't move as fast, they kill more people because the fire consumes everyone. I've researched this a lot.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I've just never heard anyone that's been able to channel their anxiety for good before.
Yeah, I hate it in the moment, but I know it will come in use one day.
How does your anxiety manifest itself?
Mentally, I'm a wreck, but externally, I turn into a stone fox.
Like people want to fuck you?
No, more like a stone fox,
or
like an actual like rabid animal. Yeah.
People are like,
more like I'm a wild
touch
creature.
That thing. It has rabies.
Yeah, on the plane, I just go like this. Yeah, I'm that person.
Weirdest fight the Try Guys have ever had?
Oh God, the weirdest fight we've ever had. Most of our fights are usually about work. So I would not say any of them are typically weird. A lot of them are pointless.
Yeah.
Because it's like over a thumbnail.
That's what the other guy said.
Yeah, or it's over a concept. Like, we've never had an actual friend-ending fight. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we have been very fortunate. And I am always all about friend-ending fights.
Right?
I've cut a lot of fat in my life.
I
used to be
good.
the biggest, like, here's some Eugene tea. I was, like, shy.
believe it.
People pleasing. I was
Right.
crazy people pleasing. One time, the first time I went to a actual party was like sophomore year of high school.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd never been to like a party. Only like a sleepover at a friend's place.
That doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
Right.
But they started playing Spin the Bottle. And I said, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. And I backed out and walked out the house.
No!
And I walked home. I was supposed to call my mom to pick me up like 2 hours later, but I walked like 3 miles home.
That's
quick.
your fight or flight, and you flight.
I flighted.
Well, that's why when you said you got anxiety, I was like, are you saying anxiety like the way people just use anxiety these days?
No, I have.
Because there is good anxiety, then there's like anxiety disorder.
Exactly. And I don't think I have that in a sense where it's debilitating,
Right.
but it is situational now.
Fine,
When I was
yeah.
younger, it was much more constant. And I think for me, a lot of it was informed by sexuality and race in my environment in Texas.
Right.
So thankfully for me, a lot of it was externally
Right.
enforced. So it was a reactionary as opposed to me naturally
Like
being
a
that way.
survival method.
Exactly.
Which almost like hardens you now in a way that
Yep.
like if it's the opposite where it is very scarring and triggering as a child and you're not dealing with it, it tends to come out
Yep.
pretty traumatically as
But for
an
me, I
adult.
was always told ever since I was a little kid that I was like weird or ugly. You know, it was like the classic bullying story. But
Yeah.
for me, then I got to have the opportunity to have a point where I said, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
And then own that and be better.
Well, and you're also hot as fuck. Like, so do you get to just like
Kelsey.
shit on? Yeah, this is gonna be an
No.
hour of me hitting on Eugene again for all
You've
of you
already
people.
done this for the past 4 years, Kelsey.
Sorry, not sorry. Okay,
I do it to you, too,
You're the one
whenever
guy I
we're
have
drunk.
no problem objectifying. Okay.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I think it's a double-edged sword, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I was really sort of like felt bullied and was very hard on myself, that was interesting because when I got out of the small town that I grew up in,
Mm-hmm.
I came to LA where I thought I was going to like come out and I was going to be, you know, in the queer community and I was going to be
Accepted.
at film school
family,
and accepted. It was
community.
kind of like the same environment, but just like
Yikes.
weirdly you went from like, and I don't mean this in the correct political term, but really it's like I went from a far right situation that was sort of
Right.
incubating my problems to a far left problem,
Right.
where it was almost like, no, you're not different at all. You're just like me, except for like you can only hang out with us because you're hot, and like you know, it was this
It was
thing.
a stereotypical 4-year
I
college,
I
right?
immediately became like the opposite of being ostracized for being Asian. I was the Asian friend for everyone. I was the quote unquote attractive
creative, hot
Asian
guy.
friend for all my gay
Yikes.
friends. So then that made me flip from the insecure, quiet, meek kid who was trying to people please to the bitchy, closed off,
Another survival
aggressive.
tactic.
Exactly. So I went from flight to fight.
Wow.
So then I joke about this sometimes. My drunk types that come out, like the 10 types, many of them I've tried to retire because they were way more prevalent in my early to mid 20s.
and it was more acceptable. I think
But
now
I was
it's
like
not.
fucking crazy when I got drunk.
I know.
Like now I'm fun crazy.
Yeah, but
I'm
you,
like fun crazy.
You have traits that you know some shit went down with you. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
I would
Like
get
I think a
into-
lot of people do see past you, and especially now that you've been a little bit more vocal and open about your past and your, you know, who has made you who you are today. I think people can see like, oh, it's not necessarily an act, but you are who you are because of what has happened to you.
Yeah, a lot of the sort of hardness I have in
Right.
Try Guys, I guess, mythology is from a real place.
Right.
It's just exacerbated because the other guys have very little hardness to them in regards to
They
their...
are soft pierogies. All of them.
No, they're sweeties, right?
Yeah.
They're like little, like if you were a Halloween candy bag, they would be like all the candies and chocolates.
Marshmallows,
And I'd be
yeah.
like the one with the syringe in it.
The one with the razor blade.
Yeah, I'd be like the
coming
apple with a
apple.
razor blade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think like, do you feel, because I saw a very interesting tweet yesterday that this wasn't part of this, but what you were saying reminded me that like a girl was commenting about this like white lady who was doing yoga, and instead of dumbbells, she uses wine. And her tweet was like, when are we going to stop like pushing the white girls with no other personality traits besides being an alcoholic as funny? Like alcoholism is a real issue. Why is it okay
Oh my gosh,
for
she was
like
directly attacking you.
well, here's the thing is 2 years ago, I totally would have been like, fuck you. Like, you don't know how I grew up. You don't know what actually like is my struggle or whatever. But now I feel like it's not cute to be that in
Yeah.
the same way that I don't think you are the same way you were a lot like 2
No.
years ago, because it's not cute to be like
And
mean
it's
anymore.
whoever tweeted that isn't wrong. The thing
For
is,
sure.
and
No,
I feel
I
like
agree.
I haven't had to clarify it yet explicitly, because I've seen comments come up because I have a lot of videos where I'm proudly drinking or, you know, very truthfully saying I handle liquor way better than the other guys. for me to joke about it is because personally I come from a family that has a history of alcoholism, and I personally went through phases where I had really bad problems with alcohol. So to joke about it now for me is very natural.
Same.
But for an audience member who doesn't know that history, I can see how it's like glorifying it.
Exactly. And people are like,
so I understand that, and I need to be a little more judicious with the way I speak about it.
But I think that's also the way, I don't think it's necessarily you or me. I think it's the way that young people are now becoming, sure, they are sensitive, but I do think they are the most intelligent, like behind us. Thank God they're taking over. But I think they're not afraid to call us out on shit that we already know is kind of gross. Like,
I have to say one thing, though, is that you kind of have to give white ladies one thing, right? Y'all don't have much to claim.
No, we have nothing. We're so bland.
I'm going to tell you right now, the older white women especially who do drink wine a lot, drink wine more than I drink anything. So as people might know, my stepfather's French, and so I grew up a little bit of time. Un peu.
Ooh,
you speak French?
No, my dad fluently does.
But my mon mère habite à Paris.
I just got
avec mon beau-père.
Anyone else have a beau-père?
Okay, I won't do that. We don't want to flood the couch.
Yeah, we're talking about something serious, okay?
So I grew up in a very strict sort of Texan household. France is the opposite of that.
Right.
So,
super free love.
Existential, non-religious.
Drinking at
There's
breakfast.
Pros and cons to both.
Absolutely.
And
no wonder you're so well-rounded.
I guess so.
You got the best of both
worlds. Or
worlds.
just messed up. I can't
both.
tell. My stepfather opened me up to this idea that I think is really healthy, especially when approaching something like alcohol, which is that it was always ingrained culturally. So for him, and for many Europeans especially, they drink wine even starting at a young age around dinner.
Right.
They drink it around meals. They drink it around celebrations.
Family,
and so young kids are starting to associate alcohol with an idea of celebration, of culture, and of occasion, as opposed to in America especially, where we're told constantly to either black and white not do this, or you're going to hell, or do this and you'll go to heaven.
Right.
That's why we have all these drunk driving accidents. That's why we have kids who are rebelling in their very rightful stage to be rebellious. But if the one thing they think of that's bad is things like drugs and alcohol, and when they're 13 or 14, they go out and they drunk drive and they get killed, it's because we keep ingraining with them that like alcohol
equals
bar none is bad.
Yeah.
And so I think that while I agree that glorifying alcohol there's a very shady area there, I don't mind the association of it with fun white ladies. Because one, white women are never seen as threatening. So if wine is associated with that, I don't see it as like someone who is essentially equating alcohol to something that will kill you.
Fun,
it is something that I think that we should be vigilant about.
Yeah.
But I think that the core of it is we should all also have like an understanding that if we're speaking from a don't do this at all and do this because that's good culture, that's never helpful in the end.
Well, that's like also cancel culture. Like, I think that's where like that's a perfect explanation of Twitter. Yeah.
And the problem is everyone is wrong or right. And that is, again, pulling back to weirdly, I guess social media has pushed into this ultra conservatism, which I've spoken about American views on alcohol, which is you are either right or you're wrong and there's no in between. And that is what made people in my family alcoholic.
Right.
Because
and so it's
it was
almost
wrong.
Like shaming and it's making people feel bad now.
So getting that in people's head.
That wasn't a bad thing. It's just something bad now.
Because once you get puritanical about anything, I'm just like, no, I'm just going to cancel you to your face.
Yeah.
Because like that never turns out
I
well.
love that term. I'm canceling you to your face. Can we make that more?
It's a live canceling
of the
face
faces.
Cancellation. Yeah.
I had a really funny fan question come in that.
Ooh,
well, I have
bourbon's
two for you.
like really hidden.
It's warm.
Also,
it's
I haven't eaten
cold.
today.
Oh,
I don't eat breakfast.
That's bad, Eugene. You should. Annette Jolene wants to know who your fave BTS member is.
Oh shit.
I don't. All I know is that BTS is a K-pop band.
This is interesting because I've thought about, as a Korean person, it is insane to see how K-pop has spread so massively, so internationally, and it is essentially like the music and visuals that young kids are growing up on. I see it a little bit too much from the industry side.
Right.
That I don't like fawn over anyone in a way where I would like I did maybe back in the day for like a girl group or a boy band.
Sure.
Like, of course, if I like say Spice Girls, I love Posh Spice. Like that, she was my bias.
Baby was mine.
But that's because I was like
soft.
aligning myself with something, and I
Yeah.
don't do that as much now because I'm too old.
It represents who you are as a person.
I might be too old, or I might be too.
So you're gonna pass on that answer?
Yeah, I might be too involved in it. But I would say Jungkook if I had to.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's just because he's like.
What's his like
He's just like perfect. He's just like the
Okay.
all-rounder. He's just like got everything.
Okay.
So I respect that, you know, because there's always like a funny one, a cute
Right,
one,
like
a bad boy. It's like
yeah.
very classic,
Yeah.
though with a little more delineation about like
Right.
specific roles.
You did a video about it where you
I did, yeah. I
were
did different
all
types.
Of them.
Yeah. And I think, I generally am more interested in the types. Here's the general answer. I'm more interested in the types that are really good at a lot of things and or got edge and swag and a little attitude.
And they need to be able to dress well.
Yeah.
Okay. This is my favorite question because I know you've never been asked this because you know how you guys always get asked the same like 10 questions?
Yes.
Oh, Mame wants to know if all of the other Try Guys were gay, would they be tops or bottoms? And explain yourself.
That is so funny.
So gay.
So
That's like the gayest thing to ask.
funny.
I can't think of anything
Okay,
gayer.
let me preface this with
Okay.
a little bit of gay culture.
Please explain what tops and bottoms are for anyone for some reason
Okay, so
isn't aware and
if
they're
you
somehow
had to,
listening to this podcast.
if you had to align with some sort of label in regards to your sexual position overall for personal preference, you're either top, bottom, or verse. Tops are the inserters,
Pitchers.
the pitchers. Bottoms are the insertees, the catchers, and then verse can switch bases.
And there's actually a lot of like kind of like buzz about this recently in the community about like what's the word I'm looking for? Like prejudice against certain.
Yeah, so what I wanted to say is that like a lot of people joke, which I think it comes from a very hyper masculine, old
there
fashioned
it
place
is.
of like bottoms are like, oh, you're
Twinkie,
a bottom because I'm
like femme.
But there is also with the sort of young people in the internet, a revolution of people being very proud about being bottoms and the reality that a lot of people are actually truly bottoms, and there's no shame in that.
Right. Was it a shameful? Was it like a little shamey?
Not shamey. I think it's more like it's very much in the vein, even though gay men didn't know they were perpetuating it, of like be a dude.
I can't think of anything more dude-like than wanting to have sex with dudes.
True.
Like that is the ultimate stance with dude.
But again, the idea of penetration,
Fair.
it gets gender rolled very
Got
quickly.
it.
So that's where it comes from. And then again, that plays into the idea of inherent sexism. So like there's a lot there to unpackage.
Sound pack. The
So-
podcast isn't long enough for
So
that.
like if this was like the year 2000, I would have
Right.
immediately joked and we would have gotten a good laugh and I said bottoms immediately. That's what I
Yeah.
would say. But I'm going to actually think about it.
Okay, let's dissect this.
So I'm going to say that
Who should we start with?
you give me a name and I'll do it.
Keith.
Keith would be...
Wow, now I am really thinking about this.
No, I'm really actively thinking about it. I have to. It's weird because I do know enough about them where I know that they're how they are in their relationships.
Yeah. Well, I think they put it on the internet and it's not too far from reality. Like they keep a lot private, but it's not like I don't think we'd be shocked to hear anything.
No. Okay, I'm gonna start with Ned.
Okay.
Ned, I think, is verse because
yeah.
he and Ariel especially are so judicious with everything that it's not necessarily even verse by preference. It's verse by their sort of their equal power
They're
dynamic.
take and share. They're like
They're
give and
very
take.
much give and take.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that in any way in their relationship, and maybe that's why they work so well. They're just extremely balanced, and I feel like if they were even a gay couple, they would probably force that. Like if anything, it might be an unnatural versatility.
Yeah. They're just like, we gotta try this.
Yes.
It's all the rage.
Exactly. Though I think that if Errol was a dude, I think they would have initially met and Ned would have been the bottom initially. And then they would become verse because they have a very
Do you think
equal
that
playing
happens
ground.
where gay men get into relationships pretending to be?
No, I don't think anyone's pretending. I think
Yeah.
people can kind of feel it naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people just know
Because
overall.
a lot of my friends will say like they assumed he was something or like I'll show them a picture and be like, do you think he's cute? And they'll be like, he's a bottom. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how do you know that?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's fair because then
Yeah.
it's like you don't see people as people. But hey, what do I know?
I'm going to go ahead and just answer the other two.
'Kay.
I think Keith and Zach are bottoms.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that they have a certain amount of also, unless you're a power bottom,
Which is different.
which is different, which involves a lot more aggressive and athletic behavior.
It's almost like you're somehow more stable.
You're like topping someone with your ass.
You're topping someone with your bottom.
Yeah. I don't think either of them are necessarily a power bottom. Ned could be when he started.
Ned could be.
I think it was Ned was a power bottom, but with Ariel, he is a verse man.
Got it.
I think Keith and Zach are bottoms, not in the sense of like, it's just, I just know them and I just know that I just feel like as gay men, they would be just way more comfortable with owning that, but also like I just feel like they don't want to do as much work and have that much pressure
Yeah.
in regards to being the hammer instead of the nail.
I think
they
what
would
you're saying
elect to be the
makes
nail
sense.
in most situations.
Yeah. I think what you're saying too about like that our generation is becoming a little bit more like owning it and being like bringing power to it, whereas before it was sort of seen as like a thing. That you're so right with Keith and Zach being like, we're fucking bottoms.
Yeah, they would be proud bottoms.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not as cut and dry because people might say, oh, he's just leaning towards like these are more feminine traits, so they're more bottom. No,
but they're
and
not.
if you knew gay men, you would find that it's very diversified.
Totally.
Sometimes you're very surprised when you find out.
I
but
am
generally,
shooketh.
it's like it's like just part of sexual energy. And you can start, it's like, so big dick energy, for example.
BD.
You know how a lot of people can sense BDE off of guys, which doesn't necessarily mean for gay men if they're a top or bottom. It just means dick size. But that is something that is almost pheromonal. It's almost like in the moment, in face-to-face, you just feel something off of someone. If you're attuned to sexual energy, you can feel that off of the bottom, top vibe.
Do you find
off
it
of someone.
to be similar with like, I know for a lot of women or like cis women, they will say like, oh, my role in society, I'm like boss ass bitch, like don't need no fucking man. But then when it comes to sex, they just want to break. They just want to do missionary. They just want someone to ravage them. They just want to be stereotypically held by a man.
I've had that conversation with
around.
So many close girlfriends.
Because you spend your time telling men
in the bedroom,
what to do
I need
all
that
day.
exactly.
Yeah, and
so there is a lot of that, and I think that does cross over in some ways to the queer community.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of gender, sexual, power dynamics happening, and I think in the end it's very individual. But there is sort of a constant that you can feel off of people.
We have to say that is like we are specifically speaking from just personal experience.
But you can really sense this type of energy off people. And case in point, in the end, there are situations where people who both feel like they innately are, say, tops will not necessarily seal the deal with each other because they can sense it off of each other.
Right.
I think people are becoming way more flexible overall.
It's the same way like with straight people. If you know you want to fuck someone within 10 seconds of meeting them, you just get that vibe. Unless you're hate fucking them, which I've definitely done, where it's like 20 years later and you're just like, rah! I just gotta get this out of my system. I don't care if it's terrible.
Yeah, and I think that in the end, it's funny because like bottom and top and gay sex positions have become like zeitgeisty. Like they're in the culture now.
Oh, and they're totally like
once Troye Sivan was making like songs about it, all the kids are going, "Oh, I'm a bottom," and I'm like, you don't know yet until you go to a club and you're hanging out with friends and you start talking to people and like take your time with sexual experiences. The other thing I should say is that I was a virgin until I was 25.
Oh,
yeah. I was virginal, but I was very sexually educated.
I didn't mean to say that as if
No.
shame.
It's shocking for people who know me.
It's shocking for people that know you, but also not so shocking now that I've heard your spin the bottle story.
Did you watch Sex Education, the new Netflix series?
I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
I fucking love it. Have you watched it all?
I watched it all.
I'm
it's
like,
great.
I think 6 or 7 episodes
It's very funny. Yeah.
But I have theories, but I don't want to discuss it in case people haven't seen it.
But the way like Gillian Anderson was like, yeah, she's hot as fuck.
I know.
That was me sometimes when I was just out of bars, and I was the virgin. Actually, I guess I was the son too. But I was like literally giving people advice when I was 23. Never had sex, but everyone would come to me and be like, "What do you think?" Because I was an objective voice.
Yeah.
And all my friends were having sex.
Wow.
But there's no shame.
Right.
In not having sex when you're young.
No,
it's
totally
normal.
Oh my God, it's so unfulfilling.
Yeah.
No one was really orgasming.
Yeah.
We were all just doing what we thought, what we saw in porn, and what the guys were lying about.
And sex takes like time and practice. It's not like
thing really
people
does.
And it's not in the movies. It's not like people don't have great de-virginizing sex when they're 14. It just doesn't happen.
No.
People don't even know how to kiss in high school.
Right.
And that's like kind of like
that's the biggest part of it.
To get into the pit at the baseball game. You're not even on home base yet.
Yeah.
You got to know how to kiss. And that, honestly, it doesn't even happen in college either.
It's a nuance. It's very specific. Like that's just age.
Yeah.
You don't learn that early on.
And it's a skill.
Yeah.
So like in the end, if you want to learn how to use trombone, you don't have to start learning trombone when you're in middle school.
Right.
And it doesn't mean someone who's been playing their trombone since middle school means they're any better at trombone if they've never actually taken a class or learned about how to use their trombone.
And some people are savant.
And some people just know how to fucking like play a trombone on the first try.
Stick it
in. It's a very diverse thing.
Yeah.
But in the end, no one should feel pressured either way.
Yeah.
I was a good example of someone who did not play trombone until I was in my mid-20s.
Now,
but knew a lot about band.
Are you a... he hung out with the band. He was with the band.
I was with all the band players. I was conducting.
Are you a platinum gay? Are you a gold star gay?
That's penis to vagina, right?
So the platinum is that you've literally never touched one in that you were a C-section baby, so you didn't even touch your mom's
no, I was
puss.
not. I wasn't C-section.
But gold star means you've never touched. Like a girl that you're like.
Then I am
hooking up.
neither.
Do tell.
I can't tell that story.
Oh, come on! Wait, you're neither. Well, yeah. Well, so okay, so you've touched a puss.
I'm coughing.
I made him choke, guys.
Yeah, it's bringing back memories.
You don't have to tell me. I'm just curious to like your 25 had anything to do with like.
Yeah, it was. Let's just say the experiences were not necessarily sexual, but maybe became that way. It's very awkward.
I had all of my first sexual experiences. I lost my virginity to a woman. Everything was very young, very early. Started with like 8-year-olds playing doctor in a room. Graduated to like making out during sleepovers. Graduated to like having sex with a woman. And it wasn't until I lost my dick virginity a week before my 16th birthday, which is still quite early, but I was the last one of anyone in my town to lose their virginity. So like perspective, right? But I also was just way more comfortable having like sexual exploration with vagina.
Yeah.
Dick scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, mine was similar, but not quite.
That's from Texas, but you ain't gold star, baby.
And I ain't gold star. I'm a lone star though.
Thank you. That's the joke I was looking for. You
You're very welcome.
It in. I do love how visible, like a lot more visible you've been about your sexuality on the internet. I think like I've known you for 3-4 years. And so I've just been in awe of your, just really like your intelligence and brilliance with the way you speak about really any culture and community, but specifically the way you have always uplifted the LGBTQIA community. What has it been like? What was the switch? What is next for you? Like what was the decision to come out a little more?
I think this is very nuanced, but I think that the reason I did not initially essentially like paint the walls red with rainbows,
Got it.
Is because of my history of being someone who was quote unquote passably straight upon first meeting, especially early, say, BuzzFeed days or early video production days. A lot of people just thought I was straight.
Right.
And a lot of people thought I was socially straight when I first meet them in college, definitely in high school. And there is an interesting cross section between being Asian and a male and not straight that for me there was a deficit in regards to a voice that could get in there that was comforting to the general public.
Sure.
And I sort of made that my job. So in a weird way, because especially if you know today, whenever you are, if anything, more of a social justice warrior, which I think is very important, you immediately are alienated to a lot of audiences.
Right.
Which is not for me a tactical thing. It was always it was more practical and impact oriented.
Right.
And it was never like my intention because like my first video was about like guys I dated.
Right.
At BuzzFeed, if you actually look back,
I
the first
know,
video I produced
and that's
was about
why
dudes
when
I
people would
dated.
be like, "Is Eugene straight?" I'm like, Google it.
But
what?
people didn't know. People didn't
Yeah.
know. And so I saw that as an opportunity because there was enough representation of really, fabulous fucking like ready to go Asian American queer men who were just like really, hitting it home. But there wasn't enough of this sort of pocket, especially online. Well, yeah, it was like I saw the opportunity, and this is also from me being sort of from an USC film school background. I was able to see myself almost as a product. And I saw that I was weirdly, even though I just never believed this as a kid, because if you know my actual film work, I'm crazy.
Yeah, no, it's intense.
I weirdly have mainstream quote unquote appeal, which is why I ended up working with the Try Guys. Never thought I would, but something about me on camera like translated well with like middle-aged moms in the Midwest and like people in Korea. So
do you feel a pressure though that
I felt incredible pressure,
like, the relatable like queer but like never out, like I feel like that must have been tough for you to balance because you're also your image, your personal life and your work life were so mixed.
Yeah, I think that for me I just sort of ended up falling into that voice because also what happened was after the first year at BuzzFeed, even though I was doing a lot of videos that were kind of edgy and like avant-garde, Try Guys really kicked in after a year after that. And with the Try Guys, the inherent premise that most even press releases had after we had a lot of viral videos is that these 4 straight men are experiencing things that they don't understand.
How assumptive of you, media.
But it is true because we had to take a stance of I am the most inexperienced in terms of like my cultural know-how, because that messaging in the video carried more impact. And so I fell into the role of being the edgiest and most sort of like, as you would say, different othered of the 4 of us, but I was still palatable for Middle America, which is why people always joke like they thought Ned and Keith or Zach were gay before I was.
Yeah. So like now that you're like, I love that you did the streamies and drag. I love that you're posting these like super fluid pictures. How are people responding, and do you give a flying fuck?
Yeah, I mean, I get like some weird ass hate messages now. I get a lot of people who stop following me. I get
which is crazy because to anyone that knows you, we're like shooketh, and I think all of us want to come to a defense and are also kind of like 2019 is not the year of wasted energy.
Yeah, you know what's nice is that what's interesting is that unfortunately I can't change people's minds, but I did get into enough people's minds who didn't necessarily understand communities I come from. First, very apparently with Asianness, and then with queerness.
And so now they're like, oh,
they're kind of like,
shit.
oh, they got to know me as a friend. Yeah, because if you think about it, sort of historically and in regards to the storyline, the narrative of the Try Guys, like I've seen as someone who's like very not only dominant in terms of my personality, I'm also very dominant.
Sorry.
I'm also very self-possessed, if anything, to the point of cockiness for character, which I'm not really in real life.
Not at all.
No, that's the secret.
But that's
I do
the Try Guys secret.
It also comes away. I don't like pretend like I'm cocky, but it comes out when I'm the one who they're like, oh, Eugene's going to do well at this. So I'm a very self-possessed, confident character that is already the Asian guy in a all-white group. So already I was playing with politics there. To then add layers with queerness, which is also a othered. Subjugated group. If I went out swinging from the get-go,
people would have been
I would have always been,
I don't get it too
and
much.
I would also have been the SJW group. I would have been the complainer. I would have been seen and boxed into these places that
you also would have had to do a lot of more emotional labor than I'm sure you already have to do as
and honestly, we would not have ever become friends because I would have already built a wall around myself. And so, and that's never should be on the responsibility of the person who's othered, but we are in a time where we're all building walls against each other.
What we do for a living, I think, is it's weird because you then have to have that conversation, which I don't think someone who's, middle America banker kind of job. Well, maybe that's not true. Maybe they have to have that conversation, but did the guys ever have a conversation with you about it, or was it always something that like you were always driving?
We've had multiple conversations throughout the time. Yeah, and I think they've always been sensitive to it, which is why I'm friends with them, which is great. Fair. But I think that and this should never be the journey of anyone who's trying to like use me as an example to follow a certain path. I think everyone should always be open up front about who they are. But for me as a person in media and a person who was well self-possessed enough to understand where I needed to push certain aspects to get more of my work creating actual impact. I sacrificed certain things and I expanded on other things. And it ended up working for me and the Try Guys in a way where I feel like I've gotten into enough people's homes, enough people's conservative grandmas have seen me that they can point at me. And in the end, and I've gotten into things like with, because the Asian community is also notoriously conservative. So I went to like even an Asian American gala in essentially a very gender fluid outfit one, and I just decided like, oh, it was weird, like because Streamies or Trevor Live, which I hosted Trevor Live, I can be very sort of like fluid and queer. People are much more open to it. Interestingly, like we don't talk about this enough, but the cross section between race and the intersection really between race and LGBT issues can be very convoluted, and Asian society can be very backwards with gender, with race, with ability. So I think with me, the decision to go as gender fluid as I please, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna do what I want, was very scary at the time because I was like, I don't know. I've already made inroads as like a digital golden boy for the Asian community. How will they respond to me also throwing this like really thick queer lever over it?
And you never felt like in the media now more than ever people want you?
I think so, but it's interesting because I went in with the confidence, which I wouldn't have had, that they have already accepted me. So I had the power. And
That's a big
unfortunately,
difference.
I think
It's
that's what
makes all the
happened.
difference in the world.
Yeah,
of how
because
you,
in the end,
yeah.
and this is like in no way a critique, it's just a very honest sort of recognition of how my sort of alignment with my identities has evolved publicly. It's that I had grown up with such little power for both being queer and being Asian in ways that I could have complained about it in every video. So from the beginning, I could have made every video about me being bullied and having the anxiety I talked about, having a lot of issues as a kid. But instead, I always presented as the person with the most power.
Damn.
Ever.
Fuck.
Every video. Because people also forget that when
That's the hottest
when
thing
I
you've ever said.
when I joined BuzzFeed, I was 28.
Yeah.
I was already older. I'd already been through the shit with LA, with
You're
college.
at early 20s. Yeah,
and people always thought I was like 21, but I was already like, I understood myself enough.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I'm going to happen to become a digital presence or like an on-screen presence, I'm going to be the vision that kids hopefully can relate to because of my background, but also can maybe find aspirational.
Right.
And so the one thing I refused was to be the joke token friend.
Right.
Especially in, funnily enough, a cast of guys who would actually be the leads if we were cast in something more traditional.
Right.
So I always said I had to have the power. So to have the power over that when I first was introduced over the first few years and then let the other stuff come out in an organic way. If I didn't have that power initially, I would always have been fighting uphill in everything I was in. If I was, say, 15 years younger with my experience as a person who was sort of ostracized a lot and had a lot of legit cultural problems, I would be like a lot of the people today. I would be on Twitter. I would be like vehemently canceling people. I would be like angrily tweeting everything because I think there is righteousness in that, but the outlet was not there for me when I was young. The same thing, the one difference is that the younger people from other communities who didn't have a voice have the, I think, the righteous act of saying this is our voice and we can be open about it for the first time. However, it can't go unchecked.
Right.
Because when it goes unchecked, especially with yourself, then you fall into problems where you aren't being in a space in which you can most healthily navigate your own personal issues because not everything can be megaphoned and put onto a larger cultural issue. A lot of things are just your own problem that you have to deal with. And I had to do that just, without the internet for a long time. Then I did it just in my own little fucked up world. And then I got to a comfortable enough place where I decided to join a place like BuzzFeed, which I thought I was just going to work out for like a month.
Yeah.
I did it because I needed a full-time job.
Sure.
And so it was interesting, and I had no interest in the internet. So it was interesting because when I got into that, I saw everyone was like, oh, put Eugene on camera more. People like seeing Eugene on camera. And my first thought wasn't, what is my identity? What is my voice? I thought that, and then I thought right after that, where is this going? What are the optics? How am I actually making real change? And I said, am I going to be first and foremost the angry young person I was and in a lot of ways still am internally? Or can I use at least one of the strengths I know I have personally to offer, which is someone who has come through that tunnel and can first be presented as empowered and in a lot of ways that people joke about online better than you, quote unquote.
Well, I think there's something to going through, right?
Yeah.
Like I try and always think of it trying to be relatable to my struggle of like anxiety, right? I'm going through it. The emphasis on through. Like you come out eventually another side. And I think what's happening with those megaphone people on Twitter is that like that becomes their identity. It becomes a little bit hive-mindy. It becomes a little bit as much as like troll mentality can become, where it's like, who are we yelling at and why? Is it just to yell? Are we just angry? Like, I don't know. I feel this way as a bisexual person that like I'm constantly overread. I'm never identified. I'm never taken seriously. But like I realize that there's two things that I can do. And maybe this kind of speaks to what you did where you were like, I have two choices. Is I can be this thing. I can be this like angry person, or I can continue to live my life in the most authentic and honest way for myself. And I think with what we do for a living, where people do look to us and want to identify so much with our lives and have someone to like stan, if you will, that can become a little dangerous where you're not living for yourself anymore. You're not being who you are. You're not speaking out about issues because you actually want to, but you feel like you have to, and you kind of become like you said, tokenized a little bit. I don't know. I think the way to avoid that, I had to learn kind of the hard way, is just by maybe sometimes logging off, maybe sometimes not participating in a conversation, and being true to my shit, like living the way that I'm going to live. And that to me feels like I'm doing more of a favor for the world by just being than being, I don't want to say angry, because I don't think people who just shout into the void are always angry, than always being like a part of it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are just searching for validation in some way. And many times the tool is to expound upon social issues. And I think that there is a validity to a lot of what people say, especially if they truly feel it. I do think, though, that what I always ask people is, if you are tweeting or if you are posting about all of these particular things, the effort you put into that should, if anything, reflect and or be trumped by the effort you put into that type of discourse in real life. Do you know what I mean? And
fucking speak it. If you walk it, you better fucking talk it. You better talk it, you better walk it.
And if there is a flip side to many things, like, one, I always support that people should surround themselves with people who they feel comfortable with, and inevitably you probably will. I also think that there's value in sometimes having to be in real life contests and debates with people who don't see the same way things you do. And it is I think part of just life, and especially in a democracy, that we have to understand that everyone's coming from a different place, and you have to admit that you're wrong. Like, I've admitted many times, even today, when I'm wrong about something. And I think that's something that we all just sort of have to strive more towards. Everything has to just be way more judiciously dealt with, from a sense of not how do I think that this sort of system makes me feel, but how, as opposed to like me being dependent on it, it's like, how does this serve my emotional needs? And I think that we have, especially young kids, have it very twisted, where they are essentially serving the platforms as opposed to vice. And that's why you have all these things about like people burning out and people like having, and it is unfortunately a reality of today, like everyone thinks that their value is so much ingrained in social media. And in the end, what I always tell people, and this kind of cuts through a lot of the shit and the fat and the stuff we've talked about, is that when you, it doesn't erase real life experience or interactions. And when you go through real life and you grow up and you decide to do whatever you want, you will always rise to the top when you are the person in the room who is the most open, is the most interested, and is the most friendly, bar none. I think that there is so much mythos around things like being intellectually superior, because I've often sort of like been seen as that person, right? Intellectually superior, physically superior, like this idea of superiority. I have a better job than you. I make more money than you. Like, these are the things, and I have a bigger following than you. This is just part of that.
Right.
None of that ever sticks. And then when you get older, you slowly realize, and this comes from the seed of like wanting to be popular as a kid in school.
Oh my God, it's hitting all the people who like
sticks.
never had that, and now it's hitting us in our 20s and 30s.
And in the end, I know that a lot of people might follow me in particular for maybe having an idea initially about who I was, especially earlier when I was like maybe playing more into being, I guess, like a darker, brooding type. But I think what most people respect, especially when you meet me in person or you talk to me, is that
you are like a very nice person.
And I'll talk to anybody, and I'll hang out with anyone, and I'll listen to people.
Oh, you've run away at nights out. You've run away with groups of people.
Just to hang out with new groups of people.
Where did he go?
And that's terrible to my actual
we
friends.
Find you.
Yeah. But I think that those skill sets, in order to be open-minded,
that's what matters.
In order to be engaging as a person, and to, unfortunately, I think it's okay to be sensitive. I think it's okay to be righteously angry about things that matter to you.
Right.
It is hard. Like, yeah, of course, if you're like a gay dude and you find out a guy like supports Trump, it's going to be very hard to get past those types of things in real life. But I would never like cut someone completely off
Right.
without hearing it to make an informed decision about where they're coming from.
Which is interesting because as a white woman who like often gets pegged as straight, I've been taught that if I have someone who is a problematic white person, typically straight, typically is distant family member, someone, that it's my job to cut that person off as like a stance against, like almost as like my allyship is that's what I should do.
Yeah.
And I've always been like, that it's still my family, I guess.
Yeah.
If they like can't wrap their head around it, if they're undereducated, if it's because they did it for tax benefits, whatever, like
A lot of us still have very conservative families.
exactly. And my thing is like I would so much rather have the hard conversation than like what you're saying. It makes me just as bad as the other side. If I go, you're dumb, you're wrong, your opinions are invalid, bye.
Yeah.
I'm unfriending you on Facebook. Which
And, you
I've
know,
done.
we are talking about this in a very I am talking about this in a very romantic sense.
Sure.
Because in the end, and which we all do quite a bit these days, is talk things out romantically. It's way easier to preach it than practice it. And you know, I think that sometimes like maybe there are exceptions. Sometimes
Yeah.
people are not in a place where they could be safe to
right.
be able to like
Sure.
shoot the shit with someone.
Personal experience.
But I think, especially if you're a woman or if
Right.
you're black, like there's a lot of situations where you do need to get out of situations and just not converse with someone. I have a little more power physically as a person to just like be in these places, in these spaces. And I think that in the end, although I will always stand up for what I believe in and I will always tweet out what I think, even if
Yeah.
it does
So
cancel other
poignantly,
people,
too. Follow him on Twitter.
I cannot let that Twitter attitude, I can't let that social
Carry
media idea
over.
become the
Yeah.
way I actually think as a person. Because if that's how I actually think as a person, then I'm going to be a sad,
Damn.
angry, listless creature,
Yeah.
you know? And that is something that I'm always afraid that kids are going to take as the most important thing
Right.
from being online.
The same way as it's how many likes you get.
Yeah, because even on YouTube video comments, all about fighting. And people just jump on a bandwagon to create
Right.
issues with each other.
Well, people love drama.
And they love the drama, but not the fun drama.
I don't. It gives me a stomach ache.
Yeah, it's all about this idea of I want to be part of
Right.
a party of people
Right.
that will just scream at the same thing with me.
To kind of tie a bow on the end of your journey where you are now, I do see a difference in the way that you speak to your audience. And I think it's with leading with love. Like, I hate how cheesy that sounds, but it truly is coming from a place of like, I'm taking care of myself first. Like,
Yeah.
like Ned's mom says, pay yourself first. B, I'm leading with love. And if you don't like it, then fuck you.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be said that everything, again, is always a two-way street. It's always a double-edged sword. So as I become more open and vulnerable in the sense where I'm being more myself in a lot of ways,
You still
I
have
also, because being a little more distant
Mm-hmm.
and seen as like more like wholesome in a way was easier to remain distant from others.
Sure.
But now that I'm more connected, I also have more personal emotion invested in
Sure.
things. So I have recently been snipping at people online.
But I kind of like.
Well, I like it because people,
Snippy.
because what's funny is
Well, I
people,
would hate.
people don't
to
realize,
go against you in
yeah,
a Twitter
people don't
thread.
realize
no
how,
fucking way.
well,
I would shit my pants.
I was sniping at
You're
people.
too smart.
I was sniping at
I
people
don't know
who,
enough big words.
well, because I joked that like we don't work for BuzzFeed anymore. We
No.
had this like
You have your own
unspoken rule where we
opinions.
didn't want to like, well, we had an unspoken rule that we didn't, it was older BuzzFeed, but we didn't engage with people
Right.
online.
Don't feed
we
the
just
trolls.
didn't. Yeah, I
Yeah.
never responded to a tweet until like last year.
Right.
Yeah, I just wasn't engaged in
And
it.
now you're like, huh.
But now I'll talk to people. But with that comes a personal
Right.
like
Attachment,
investment
right.
into emotionally engaging yourself in
Sure.
conversations. And when I start seeing now that I have that platform for that voice, I get into spaces where like, yeah, people are shitting on the other guys. I'm going to be the one like, but then again, I'm trying to lead with my strength, which is now, even though I'm being more open and more vulnerable and more queer and Asian, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm also being more open about like how actually mean I am. And if you
Yeah.
fuck with my friends, I will destroy you.
No, yeah.
With
I
not
think,
only
like,
my
the
face, but my
whole
words.
Conclusion of this podcast is don't ever be mean to Eugene on Twitter because I'm terrified for you.
No, but people are generally great. And I think that we,
Yeah.
at least with the Try Guys, have always fostered this very distinct sense about like openness, that we have a very particularly, and wholesome's not the right word, they're just a very kind group
Well,
of
I think
fans.
for every one vitriol tweet that you get, there's 1,000 people that support and love you and the boys.
Yeah, and they're nice
like,
to each other, which I like.
I think that can almost become muted in a way when you're
Yeah.
constantly flooded with love and people that care about you and support you. It almost makes the one thing that's gross stick out so much more because
Yeah.
it's easier to take the love. You almost become like a little numb to it. Not to say that like we're not grateful for our fans and yada, 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 but like you do, that becomes normal. It's like people follow you because they like you. So you are used to seeing positive comments in your life. Whereas like when something pops up, it's like, what the fuck is that? Like I'm going to take it so much more because someone took their time out of their day to find me and call me out. And the point is, don't follow me if you don't like me. I can't take the,
Nah, you can take
I
it.
can take the negativity. I'm a very sensitive little small being in the inside.
Well, I think everyone is.
Aren't we all?
The angry screaming comes from a place of sensitivity, but like not the healthy sensitivity.
That's why I cry when I'm mad.
Yeah.
Damn.
You know what it is? This is something that my dad always told me. Everyone has the right to be sensitive, but not everyone can be sensible.
Whoa.
So use your sensitivity sensibly.
Whoa.
Right?
Yo, I think that just fixed a lot of things wrong with me.
And sensitivity is a powerful tool. It's
Yeah.
powerful for artists. It's powerful for anyone who has to like engage with others. But we can't peddle sensitivity like it's a drug.
Whoa.
Your sensibility is what people need more of, which is this idea of what and when and how should I showcase my sensitive nature. And in that way, I think people will actually connect more. Because once you start weaponizing sensitivity, then it becomes this idea that everyone is a quote unquote snowflake. And then we have the liberals yelling at the Republicans about a snowflake and the old people yelling at the young people and the young people yelling at the old people. And it becomes this whole thing where I'm just like, and in the end, it's like, you didn't even have to speak in the first place because in the end, nothing is resolved.
We're all going to die.
You have to look at yourself and say, well, Carl said I was wrong. And he pointed this out. I do see that. Maybe we could talk about that more. And I'll figure out why I could be wrong. And maybe in the end, maybe I don't think I'm wrong, but we'll figure it out. But now it's literally like, if you told me I'm wrong, I would just be like, now, oh, of course, Bizarro World, I'm right. Yeah. Thank you. Of course
like
I'm right.
the story of being a white woman. If more white women could listen to that, think about why you're wrong rather than being just upset and sensitive, we could stop a lot of wars.
But you can drink wine whenever you want. I'm all about the wines. I'm all about the winos.
Eugene, you've been the best. Don't tell the other boys I said that.
Well,
I
aren't you airing
forever.
my podcast first?
Yeah, there you go. So
well, you can't precede the other guy's podcast
the future.
with that.
Yeah, I haven't even filmed with them, so how would I know? Where can people follow you if they don't already? Because why?
I don't want to fucking say that. Do people say that?
You have to plug your whatever. You can plug
I don't
something
like
else.
plugging
You want to
shit.
plug Lucy Liu?
I mean, kind of.
Go follow Lucy Liu on Twitter.
Was that a sexual innuendo or
Both?
Oh, okay. Now Lucy Liu. So I once was on something very voluntarily and very lovely, and I spent 2 hours just like ranting to like an audience of strangers about how Lucy Liu is so underappreciated in what she did for the Asian American community.
I feel like she's coming back, like she's getting her.
Well, she presented the Golden
wind.
Globes for
Right.
Crazy Rich Asians because people were like, you know what, Lucy Liu was like one of our only
OGs.
Asians, but she was in that
Legacy.
weird '90s 2000s
Yeah.
period where it was just
People
her.
didn't have DVR yet, but
Yeah, I fucking love
they
Lucy
had
Liu.
stands.
My idol.
Okay, so go follow Lucy Liu for
Go follow
Eugene.
Lucy Liu for me, yeah.
I love you. I love your intelligence. I think you're brilliant. I wish you would kiss me one day, but
Well, but no, you're looking for a throuple with a girl.
Yeah, so not this time. Maybe next year. Thanks, Eugene.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Everyone rate this 5 stars if you want to. If not, what are you doing here? Write a review.
Wait,
Thumbs up this.
Be kinder to your
comment.
audience.
If you subscribe, I'll suck your dick.
Perfect.
Bye.
Bye.